Joining us now, Carly Fiorina, former Chairman CEO of Hewlett-Packard, former candidate, U.S. Senate in California, former presidential candidate, 2016, and she is the John Fredericks undisputed frontrunner, should she choose to run for the 2018 nomination for U.S. Senate on the Republican side. Carly Fiorina, great to have you with us.
Good morning, John. How are you? All those formers.
I know. It is
How are you?
I'm going to remember that the next time. It doesn't really ring too well. It's not good, I have to say. And the current frontrunner for the GOP nomination 2018 Virginia for Senate, should she choose to run. Now, Carly, epic fail. I called it crony care. What did you make of the whole thing?
Yeah, epic fail. So disappointing. Well, first, let's just remember that while all these politicians are scrambling around, healthcare is incredibly personal to every American. And so it's a big deal when people start talking about fixing or changing or repealing or replacing. I say that because I think the epic fail here, right from the beginning, was there was no convincing case put forward by Ryan or anyone else that where we were going to go with this effort was better than where we are. And you saw that in the polls. You saw it in the range of opposition to this thing. So to me, they rushed this way too fast. I know it's disappointing to think that in 7 years we didn't have a plan, in 7 months we didn't have a plan. But I think this was rushed through in 3 weeks. And what didn't happen, and it was incredibly important that it should have happened, is a convincing, compelling case needed to be made. Citizens, where we are going with this is better than where we are. And that case was never made.
Wow, you're so right. Boy, you nailed it in like 3 minutes. We went on the air for like 9 days, and you nailed it in 3 minutes. That's exactly what happened. So where do we go from here?
Well, first let me just say, I think it would be useful if, I know this is hard to imagine, but it would be useful if all the politicians would stop engaging in the blame game. The American people want results. That's what leadership is about, producing results. The result was not produced here. So man up, quit pointing fingers, own it, say, hey, we blew this, we didn't get it done, here's what we've learned from this failure, here's what we're going to do differently, and now we're going to go produce results for the American people. It's what people want. Whether they're talking about the President of the United States, the Speaker of the House, the Republican Party, people need results.
So, Carly Fiorina, if you were advising the president right now, because you nailed it. This was an epic fail, there's no question. I've engaged myself in the blame game, but I'm not a politician. I'm a radio talk show host. So we can do that, but I get what you're saying. But now, if you're advising President Trump right now, and you were on the phone with him, and he says, what should I do about health care going forward? The one thing he says is, well, I'm just going to let Obamacare implode, and then we'll get back to the table. That's probably not a good thing for people, and not a strategy you want to have. But what would your counsel be to Donald Trump right now?
First, I would indeed begin the process of tax reform. I would make sure that I'd learned my lessons from health care reform. In part, what that means is behind closed doors, putting together the White House plan, presumably they have been working on one, and the House plan, which Kevin Brady is moving. Get those two plans together behind closed doors, away from the media spotlight, and work through a plan that will have sufficient support to pass. That may take a while, but it's critically important that it get done. Sometimes you got to go slow to go fast. Mm-hmm. Support for these major changes has to be built. We've talked about this on your show before, so go do that. At the same time, quit talking about health care. Quit blaming folks. Quit saying, we're going to let Obamacare explode. Just behind the scenes, work on it. Work on it, get the support, get a plan that people can compellingly and convincingly tell the American people is going to be better. There are all kinds of plans out there, but clearly they didn't put them together in a way that was going to improve lives for the American people. So don't give up on it. Don't, throw the baby out with the bathwater and take your marbles and go home. Work on it, but do it quietly. I know it's hard sometimes to do these things quietly, sometimes particularly for this president and for politicians who love the spotlight. And let's face it, there are lots of them up on the Hill. But now is a time to put a plan together, build support for it, build consensus for it, and then when you're ready, come out with tax reform and get it passed, and then come out with health care and get it passed.
So, Carly Fiorina, when you were CEO of Hewlett-Packard, right, huge company, and you had a senior executive come to you and said, go with me on this, I can deliver whatever it is that I need to deliver. And then they came up woefully short, like it wasn't even close. How would you react to that?
Well, the first thing I would say is you never trust a single individual or leader to carry a ball that's this heavy and this important. I don't care how smart somebody is. You can't redo the nation's health care, impacting every single American's life in 3 weeks. It can't be done. And so the first thing I would do is not trust it when somebody said, hey, I got it, let me go carry this ball. This is a massive team effort. We've talked about this before, John. Substantial change always inspires substantial resistance. It is the nature of change. Mm-hmm. Realistically, the Democrats were never going to come along. Mm-hmm. That means you got to have a real team effort. And unfortunately, it isn't what they had here. Most importantly of all, they didn't get the American people on the team. Mm-hmm. The American people needed to understand, why is this going to be better? And that case wasn't made. In fact, as the facts came out about this case, mm-hmm. it looked like a lot of Americans were going to be worse off.
Well, that's why the approval rating for this at the final hours dropped to 17%.
That's right.
As some public surveys said, it was a very complicated. People didn't know why they were going to be better off because they heard, I've got coverage now, it might go away, and my premiums, which I can't pay now, might go up or are going to go up, according to the CBO, for a period of time, but then they'll come down when I'm dead. I mean, that basically was the bill.
In addition to everything you just said, which is absolutely right, the end point wasn't even reached in the first piece of legislation. The American people needed to trust that somehow a bunch of regulatory reform was going to get done. Right. And then there was another piece of legislation. Right. Sorry, but Americans are not in a trusting mood right now.
You're right.
Show me the money. Show me the results. Tell me my life is going to be better. Right. The other thing that I would just say, John, what's disappointing to me is, honestly, the Republicans made the same mistakes the Democrats made. What did the Democrats do? They passed something that people really didn't understand. They cheered over a political win without a single Republican vote. They never convinced the American people that they would be better off. They gave them a bunch of promises that didn't come true. It kind of felt like that all over again, and that's a shame. We need to learn the lessons of the failures of the past, own them, man up, accept them, and go produce results. And if the Republican Party can't do that, shame on us.
Then they're going to lose.
That's right.
You're absolutely right there. And you're right, too, because if you look at the Trump election, it was based on the fact that people don't trust the politicians anymore. So then for the congressional Republican leadership to go back to a plan that was based on trust me on phase 2, trust me on phase 3, and they've already demonstrated they don't really trust anybody up there in Washington, or that's where I am, so where we all are now. I think you nailed it. I think you absolutely summed it up.
People put President Trump in office because they wanted results.
Right.
Results, right?
Right.
And so now results need to be produced for the American people, and all the way back to the beginning, health care is something that's so personal. It impacts everybody's life, so people get very anxious about it, understandably speaking. And so you can't just kind of wave your arms and say, hey, trust me, it's going to be better.
Oh, you're right. Carly, Devin Nunes went to President Trump when he said he found information that may have validated the president's tweets on potential surveillance on the transition team. Now, Adam Schiff, his ranking member on the Democratic side, Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi, all up in arms, saying he should recuse himself, and Nunes apologized. Nunes is saying, look, I got information that no one else had that affected me. I was bothered by it. I went to the president. Too bad. That's what I did. Should he recuse himself? Why or why not?
Well, John, you and I came up with the right answer last time I talked to you, right?
Yes.
We said, hey, we got to have either a special prosecutor or an independent commission.
Right.
And that's still the right answer.
Right.
It's still the right answer. And every day that goes by, it becomes clear it's the right answer because the Democrats will not let this go. And the American people need to be reassured about what actually happened here.
And that's really the only way you're going to get to the bottom of this.
That's right. That's the only way you're going to get to the bottom of this in a way that everyone trusts.
All right, let's get to the gubernatorial campaign in Virginia. 3 Republicans running: Frank Wagner, Corey Stewart, Prince William County Chairman, got fired from the Trump campaign in August. And then Ed Gillespie, the front runner right now. How do you see this playing out?
Well, first, I am a supporter and endorser of Ed Gillespie. I have been since he jumped in the race, so full disclosure. Obviously, these are 3 fine Virginians. I'm supporting Ed because I've known him for almost 20 years. And he was an advisor to me when I was a chief executive. I know his executive abilities. One of the things that impresses me about Ed is he's a very, very good listener, and he tells you what he thinks you need to hear, not what you want to know, which is an important distinction. There are a lot, when you're a chief executive or you're a senator or you're a president, there are a lot of people who are going to tell you what they think you want to hear. They want to curry favor. And particularly when you're an executive, you need people to actually tell you what you need to know. And sometimes that's not what you want to hear,
right.
But you need to hear it. And Ed was always that kind of guy, and so I am supporting him. Obviously, we have a really important opportunity in the Commonwealth of Virginia in 2017 to put a Republican back in the State House. And that's incredibly important because Virginia is falling in its ratings. We're not a particularly good place to start a business anymore. Our educational achievement of our students is falling. Things have not been going well under Terry McAuliffe, and they won't go well under a Democrat governor. So this is a really important election, as are the others that are happening in the Commonwealth this year.
So let's get one issue in Virginia that has now come up again, which is Medicaid expansion. Most Republicans, like me, were opposed to that. We fought it for a long time, thought at the time we did the right thing. But now Obamacare is not going away. Even if Ryan Care went through, or Crony Care, however you want to term it, that called for a continual funding of Medicaid expansion. So Virginia, one of the few states not to get the money, everybody else is getting it. It's continuing to be funded. Why not just go back and say, look, you know what? Nothing's going to happen to Obamacare in the near term. And why not just go back and take the money?
Well, it's obviously a very tough call for all the reasons that you just described. Mm-hmm. I'm not running for governor. Those are calls that the governor is going to have to make. But here's my opinion. My opinion is this. Politicians way too often, and this is why I think the American people have lost so much faith in them, make a decision that's easy in the short run and very difficult and damaging in the long run. And I think Medicaid expansion is exactly an example of that kind of decision. Yes, you're right. It's an easy decision in the short run. Hey, why not? But in the end, it will be damaging. There's just no doubt about it. All you got to do is look at the numbers and understand that eventually these chickens are going to come home to roost. It is a leader's job to make the tough calls. The easy calls can be made by others. A leader's job is to make the tough calls and then stand up and explain why the tough call is necessary.
All right. That is very sage advice from Carly Fiorina. So I got to talk to your assistant, Frank, because like you're on every other week, and like we can't go 2 weeks. We got to go every week because We got to get the Carly Fiorina
Well,
fix
you
going.
talked to Frank. Last week I was traveling, so sometimes things get in the way. But it's
Well.
always fun and informative to talk with you, John, and your listeners. So.
Well, thank
And
you.
we solve the problems of the world in 20 minutes, you know?
It's unbelievable. I mean, it really is. I mean, you sum the whole Obamacare debacle up in 3 minutes. We've been talking about it for 9 days, 4 hours a day. You summed it up in 3 minutes. Thanks for being with us, Carly.
Hey, it's
Thank
my
you so
pleasure,
much.
John. Have a great day.
All right. We'll see you soon.
Take care.
More information, CarlyFiorina.com. CarlyFiorina.com. Keep it right here.